Hi guys, today I'm going to do a video about broadband, about home broadband, about what you should be expecting. I've had a lot of friends ask me to do this video because they're struggling with their broadband at home, their connection speeds, their Wi-Fi's, the different routers, the different Wi-Fi extenders, power line adapters, and all the other things that we perhaps get a little bit confused about what they're for and how to use them. Hopefully I'm going to explain that. I'm going to do the video in two parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about the types of broadband you get, and also then I'm going to talk about the installation of the broadband. Is it done properly? Are you getting the most from it? Have you got it set up right? First of all, let's talk about the different types of broadband. So there's different products. If we simplify it, there's 4 different products now. We've got the normal ADSL. So the ADSL product is split into 2, ADSL 1 and ADSL 2. The ADSL 1 product is up to 8 meg download, and the ADSL 2 product is up to 20 meg download. The next product, which probably a lot of us have now, is the VDSL product. So that is a product that's still fed over the existing copper wire that you've got in your house, but they've taken a fibre optic cable to the cabinet, the green cabinets that are in the road. They take a fibre optic cable to there, and then they feed your house with the copper cable from that cabinet into your house. What that does is cut down on the longest part of the cable, the bit from the exchange to the cabinet. So the speeds you can get on VDSL are up to 80 meg. Basically 2 products, a 40-10, so that's 40 meg down and 10 meg up, or an 80-20, so that's 80 meg down and 20 meg up. The other product that's available to some people, and I'll explain why I say some people, is a product called GFast. So GFast is an upgrade to VDSL, and you can get faster speeds, a couple of different options you can go. I think the basic option to 160 meg download and 30 meg upload. But also as well, I think they offer a second product, which I think is 300 plus meg down and 50 plus meg up. So that's your GFast. The only thing you've got to take into consideration with your GFast is that your router has to be less than 300 meters from the cabinet. Again, it's fed and it's designed in the same way as VDSL. They take a fibre optic cable into the green cabinet, and then it's transferred onto your existing copper cable that goes to your house. Now, the copper cable can be no more than 300 meters from the cabinet to your house. So if you are over 300 meters, that means you won't get the speed and they won't allow you to have it. So the other product is full fibre. I'm sure that you will have seen work going on around your area, or you've got friends that are having work done in their road where there's a lot of new furniture going on the poles outside their house, and new infrastructure going into the ground, pulling the new fibre optic cables in and putting the new blocks on the poles. Well, that is in preparation for everybody to go fibre. The end game is for everybody at some stage to go full fibre, and that will mean, you know, a new installation. It will mean a new wire coming from the pole to your house and in with a new setup on the boxes, and we'll talk about that perhaps in another video. But that is being offered now, but we're not quite there yet, you know, and so most of us will still be on some kind of copper connection. And that's what this video is about, really, is about making sure your installation in your house is correct and it's wired correctly and you're getting the most out of your broadband. So let's talk about the installation. So let's talk about how the cable comes into your house. So there'll be 2 basic ways how the cable comes in. One will be an overhead wire, which you'll visually be able to see coming from a pole, attaching to the front or the back of or the side of your house, and it will work its way in. Usually visually you can see it coming through the window sills, and you might have a little junction box where the external cable meets the internal cable, and then that will feed onto the master socket. Or you'll have what they call an underground feed, where the cable comes in underground. There's two basic types of underground feed. One is an armoured cable. So that's an armoured cable that's buried direct in the ground from a connection point outside, and that will either come to the front of your house or in underneath your house and into a socket. So visually you might not be able to see that. But there's a second underground type feed. So they put a duct from the outside connection point right up to the front of your house, and then you have a cap in and the cable goes in. Visually you might be able to see that on the front or the back or the side of your house. So when you've worked out how your house is fed, what you want to do is make sure that the wiring is correct. If the wiring on your broadband is not correct, it may be causing your speed to be a lot slower than what you should be getting. Then what you want to do is, when you've worked out how your cable is fed into the house, you want to track it along, and what we need to see is the first interface needs to be a master socket. So as your cable comes in, the first interface that you can plug anything into needs to be a master socket. And if it isn't, then it's going to be detrimental to your broadband speeds. Now there's different types of master socket. I just wanted to show you perhaps some of the master sockets that you might come across, and go through the different setups they've got. We just go through them individually and I'll talk you through. So this is an old style master socket. You'll notice on the front it's divided into two. It's got the old T logo on here. Now, like we talked about, your feed should come straight into the back of this one. If you have a look on here, this is where it terminates on the old screw type sockets. So that would be your feed from the outside. But as you look at it, if you see it's divided into two, if you undo these two screws and pull that off, underneath you'll have a setup, and basically this faceplate here connects to your extensions in these push fit IDC sockets, and this point underneath there is what they call a test point here. What that allows you to do is disconnect your extensions by unplugging that off there, and your extension wiring will be wired into here, and plug in your phone directly here to have a test point. So if you had broadband and you've got filters, you just plug your filter in there as it would be on the front of there, and that isolates all your extension wiring which is in there, and you can go on the test point here, which will allow you to identify whether the fault is coming into the house, or if you put your extensions back in, is it inside the house. To terminate into these, and they're numbered 1 to 6, you need an inserter tool like that. So that's the old style socket. Now we've moved on from there. This is normal face, but we move on to there, and we now got, this is the newer style faceplate. Obviously you've got your socket point there, but this one is a squeeze to take your faceplate off, and underneath here the extension wires are terminated in this one here, and this is basically a push fit. You push them into the holes, you push that down, and it terminates your extension wiring. It's still isolated. Once you take that off, it isolates, and you've still got your test point there, so you can test on your incoming line. Again, in a similar way, the external wire comes in, and it's now a push fit instead of a screw fit like the other one. You put the two wires that make up your telephone line into there, push it down, and that's it terminated. That'll make that socket live. But to make the extension wiring live, you need to put the faceplate back on like that. Just wanted to show you a couple of other master sockets that you might come across. If you have a look at these, they're a lot smaller, and they do not have the faceplate to take off. in which case you won't be able to isolate your extension wiring. And this one, which is the same size as this one, is a master socket with the same type of terminations on the back. They're all push fit. You can't isolate them again because you've got no halfway to pull the faceplate off. But if you notice this blue capacitor on here, that is what signifies a master socket. So if you have got one of these and you want to work out if it is your master socket, you can undo the screws, take it off, have a little look. If you've got a capacitor like that on it, then it's a master socket. If you haven't, and it's like this one, that is a slave, so that'll be an extension socket. So that'll be useful for you to be able to identify which. And the last one we come to, which we've talked about as well, is the service specific. Now again, it's push fit. Again, we can squeeze it to take the faceplate off. And again, you've got a test point underneath. And again, the extensions terminate into here. And it's exactly the same on the back. But one thing you have got on this one, on the faceplate, is you have got a termination point there where you can wire in a data extension. So basically another cable that will feed to another socket that you can have purely your broadband off. So if you wanted your broadband in another room and you didn't want to disrupt your wiring too much, you could run one cable and it would piggyback off this termination into there, into your other room, and you could have your router set up in there. So that's quite useful to know. So there's lots of versions of the faceplate. Now, if you've got an old BT type faceplate, then you should really be thinking about getting that changed and upgraded to a newer one, because they in themselves can cause issues. And they're probably 20 plus years old and they weren't designed for broadband. So, you know, you might want to speak to your provider, let them know you've got an old T box, and ask them if you could get that changed. That will be a matter of maintenance. You shouldn't have to pay for that. There's also two types of faceplate in the way that they interact with the wiring. So you've got the normal faceplate that we've just talked about, and you've got what you call a service specific faceplate. What happens with your broadband is your broadband and your telephone line come in on the same copper cable, and at some point they're split. Now, if you have got a normal master socket, you will need a microfilter, which I'm sure you've already seen, like a little dongle with a box on it. And at the end of it, you've got an outlet for your telephone, your PSTN telephone, and your RJ11 for your broadband, which goes into your router. Now, if you've got a normal faceplate, although service providers recommend you should have your router in the master socket, providing your wiring's okay, you can have your router in any of the other sockets, provided that every socket in use has got a microfilter on it. And the microfilter splits the telephone line and the broadband line. So it comes down the same wire together, and the filter splits it out so you can use your telephone and your broadband. Now, the service specific front plate is specifically designed to optimize your wiring, particularly if you've got old wiring in the house. That can cause inherent issues. It can be noisy. It can induce noise into the line, which is detrimental to your broadband speed. One of the ways you can negate that is by putting a service specific front plate on it. And what that essentially does, it has the filter built into the faceplate. You don't need a microfilter plug-in. As your line comes in, providing it's the first socket or outlet that it goes to, the broadband will stop at this point, and the internal wiring that goes around your house will not be able to affect your broadband. So basically it separates it at this point. The telephone line will go off to the extensions, but the broadband will stop and you can only have your router plugged in to that specific point. So if you've got any issues with your internal wiring, that won't be able to affect the broadband speed because it's filtered at that point. Now, there's something else you've got to look for. As the line comes in, there's an old way of wiring we call star wiring. And basically, as the line comes in, the old way, prior to broadband doesn't like star wiring. It likes it to come into one point and then jump onto the next and jump onto the next and jump onto the next. Star wiring, the old way we used to do it prior to broadband, comes into one junction point and then splits out to all the points in the house, including the master socket, in which case the line does not go to the master socket first, like we need it to make the broadband work properly. So you can notice this if you can visually follow your wiring in. Sometimes the wire will come in one continuous length, it will go into your master socket and you can see that there's no interruption before it gets to your master. But if it comes into a junction point, it might be star wired in there. So if you've got a little junction point, just undo the lid, have a little look. If you've one wire in and one wire out and it's going to the master socket, you're fine. If you've got one wire in and multiple wires out, that is star wiring. And you need to perhaps get a telecoms engineer or an electrician to have a look at that to optimize your broadband, because that will definitely be slowing your broadband down. And it could be the root of dropouts, slow speeds, all sorts of issues that you've had for a long time and it's never been picked up. So that's something you really need to get checked out. So once we've worked out the wiring's good, then we've optimized what you should be getting in the house. From there, we can talk about how you utilize your broadband when it's in the house. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on that because I don't want to overwhelm you with all this stuff in one go. I think we should segment it into two. I hope you've enjoyed the content on this and I hope you've been able to follow it. And I hope that if you have got issues or you're unsure of your installation and your setup, that this might help you and give you some peace of mind to knowing whether you've got it set up correctly or you've got some kind of issue. Listen guys, if you've got any questions you want to ask me about your particular setup, I'd be happy to help. Just put them in the box below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you do like the video and you think it's useful, please give us the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I'll be doing the follow-up video very shortly talking about the equipment we use in the house and how we use it.